MetricSmart Studio configuration tool, which you can see a screenshot here of on the left-hand side, and which Richard will be showing in a couple seconds, enables a managed approach that significantly reduces the project risk associated with BI and at the same time accelerates solution delivery. And as I mentioned before, you'll see this in a couple minutes with Richard's demonstration. And basically, what you'll see is we're delivering three things effectively to speed up the implementation process around BI. First of all, you'll see full orchestration, which is the idea that we have this intelligent 10-step guide that you see here on the left-hand side, and that takes you very quickly from a clean product install directly to solution delivery and ensures consistency and repeatability around all of your BI solutions. It also makes solution deployment iterative in the sense that we have an iterative approach that reduces time to value and lowers cost of change for any BI project. Basically, once you've rolled out your first MART or even a complete set of dashboards, it's very, very easy to extend or enhance your Altosoft implementation. You just go back and you follow the same 10-step process that you're seeing here. Change is really easy, even if it means connecting to new data sources. And what that enables you to do is to start small, deliver value very quickly to business users, and then rapidly scale the implementation in terms of breadth and depth. So you're enabled, or you have the ability to deliver a broader BI footprint to more users faster than you have before. The next step here, or the next item here, is the codeless nature of the solution. Altosoft is 100% codeless from installation to solution delivery. Again, you'll see this in Richard's demonstration. We have point-and-click data mapping and KPI definition. We have full web-based drag-and-drop dashboard and report development. There's no SQL, there's no code, there's no proprietary scripting. And what that means is that you're significantly reducing or even eliminating the idea of having custom development and, of course, the errors and the maintenance headaches that come along with custom code. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Richard, and he's going to demonstrate the Studio environment and the MetricSmart product.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm displaying my screen now so that you should all be seeing Insight Studio. And what I'd like to do for the first portion of this demonstration is to show you what it takes to go from a clean install of Insight Studio, which is the way I have this set up, to generating a MetricSmart, which in my case, I'm going to take data from multiple different sources, from an order management system, from a human resources system, in order to be able to pull out revenue from the orders and additional information from the employees who place the orders. I want to take both those data sources, bring them together into a set of metrics, and then store that out in my MetricSmart. The screen you're looking at here on the left has a navigation panel that would allow you to get to all the different kinds of information that we provide. But rather than forcing someone to try and figure out, well, where do they start and what do they do next, that's the reason for this guide that we see in the middle of the screen. It gives you a simple series of steps, and by following through these steps, we will go through everything we need to do to build out the MetricSmart and then to create a dashboard from that MART. So for instance, looking at the step one, the first thing I need to do is to define the connections to my low-level data. So I mentioned that I've got order information, I've got HR information. I'm going to go to step one and say that I want to create a new connection. I'll call this order data. Put in the credentials to connect to the order management system. And you note that I'm using a database here, Northwind. I point this out because some people may be familiar that this is the standard sample database that comes with SQL Server. The importance of this is there was no pre-processing that went into getting this ready. This is just raw data in the form we would typically expect to see it at a customer site. And let me just make sure I've got this typed wrong. I see a typo there. So I got no results. Once I've got the information typed in, I click where it says refresh table list. The system now introspects that data source and tells me, from my order management system, is there tables of data available for me to work with? So now I've got access to my orders. I mentioned I also need access to my HR system. So I create another connection. I'll call this one HR and put in the credentials that I need here. And of course, this might be running on any machine across your network. It doesn't have to be on the same server. And it might be any type of database. Here I'm using the default, which is SQL Server. But if I look on the right where there's a button labeled Advanced, and I click on that, from here I get a list of a variety of data sources that we support, most being relational databases, but then there are things like Excel, which are not relational databases. So we can take an Excel spreadsheet as a data source. We can also take message buses, message queues as a data source. And for databases that are not on our list, you choose unknown database, and if you've got an ODBC connection to it, then we can access the data that way. In this case, I want to go out to my human resources system, so I type in the name of the database, click where it says refresh, and now I see all the tables are available to me from my HR system. Now I know that at some point in building out this metric smart, I'm going to want to deploy it out to a deployment database. So I'm going to create one more connection, which I'll call deploy. And in my deploy connection, I'll again put in the credentials needed to connect to, in this case, my deploy database. I'll click where it says test connection. I see that my deploy database is ready for me. So now I've done all the low-level data connectivity. And as you'll see later, our access control mechanism allows you to define by user or role which of these functions a given user or role is allowed to both see and change. So in other words, the user that has rights to get to the low-level data connectivity, we've already finished with that person's expertise. They can go and work on other projects. We'll be working at a higher level in these other steps. Now we've got the low-level data connectivity. Moving on, step 2 asks for a database adapter. Well, for us, a database adapter is a very simple thing. It's simply a matter of specifying from the various connections we've created, which one do I want to use as a starting point to pull out information that I'll use to generate the event from which I'll calculate metrics. Well, I see here order data, which is my starting point, but I do notice that the status of this adapter is currently red. The reason for that is that we provide certain Windows services that run with the system, and I see here, for instance, my Insight server. This is where we do in-memory joins. When you've got data coming from different databases, we can do it much faster in memory than having one of the databases do it internally within that database. And I also see a database adapter where I can do transformations. When we put these two together, it means we're offloading the actual joining across multiple data sources from the raw database. We're offloading the transformations that would often be embedded in SQL and executed in the source data. All these are now going to be executed in memory on our end, which means that we lighten the load on the source databases, as well as there are many operations such as the joining across databases. We can do much faster in memory than the databases can do themselves. Now that I've started up those services, I see my adapter is yellow. I click the register button. It'll momentarily turn green. And then I know that my database adapter is ready to go. So now I've got all my data access. What do I do next in order to build out a metric smart and a dashboard of metrics? Well, in all cases, the answer to that question is the same. I go back to my guide and go to the next step. I did step 2 to build the adapter. Next is step 3, where I want to define what are the actual events, the business events that I want to pull out of the data. Well, here's my adapter. Here's my order data source under that. And through that, I can create an event. Now, if I want to look at something such as the revenue for my orders broken down by various dimensions, I'll create an event called an order. And within my order event, I see that I've got one field by default, which is time. If you're going to be calculating metrics on events, you want to know when they happened, which is why we provide the one default field of event time. But now I can map this back to the actual data. So here are the tables that were available to me from my order data source. Here's the orders table. I'll start there. And now I see things such as there's an order date, a required date, a ship date. And I'll just use drag and drop mapping to pull out the fields I want. So for instance, my event time, I'll use for that the order date. Now, an important difference between this and the ETL, data warehouse, and cube approach is that we're not trying to pull all the data to one place to answer any questions anyone ever might have. Our approach is very different, which is tell us the metrics you care about, the dimensions you care about, and we're going to pull out just the minimum fields we need to satisfy those requirements. But unlike the traditional approach where you have to use an ETL tool and a data warehouse tool and build out the cubes and overlay that with a BI tool, we have one tool that does everything. And a major benefit of that is, in addition to ease of use, is that when you want to make changes, it's very easy to make changes. So I can afford to simply pull out the dimensions I want now, and if a week from now someone says they need a different dimension to analyze this by or a different data source, it's very easy for us to make incremental changes in this one system that goes from raw data to your marked dashboards and reports. So I'm only going to pull out the fields that I know that I need, either for some dimension that I want to analyze this by or something I need to calculate to actually generate a metric value. So for instance, if I want to look at revenue by city, I'll include the city field and the same for country.